To me, the best training for hiking Grand Canyon is hiking Grand Canyon. I'm going to adapt a quote from Yogi Berra and say, rim to rim is 90% mental and the other half is physical. Everyone's different, but to me, the practical and psychological aspects of preparing for a rim to rim hike are probably as important or more important than the physical training aspects. But think of this as kind of like sharing notes with a comparable student in class. I'm not suggesting that you should do the things that I do, but only perhaps that some of the strategies may be useful to you. With that said, I should comment on my experience hiking Grand Canyon. I've successfully completed about a dozen rim to rim to rim hikes, as well as more than 100 rim to rim hikes. These hikes are a bit of an obsession for me. And also, let me clarify that my rim to rim hikes are senior style. That is, I hike from one rim to the other, then I get a hotel room, spend the night, and hike back the next day. In truth, I don't spend a lot of time in the room, as I like to hit the trail at 1 a.m. on a rim to rim hike, but at least I get a shower, dinner, breakfast, and a cup of coffee. And sometimes I complete a rim to rim hike with a stay in the hotel in about the same elapsed time as people who encounter trouble on the hike and sleep on the trail. But I'm a lot more happy than they are. With those preliminary matters behind us, to me, the best training for hiking Grand Canyon is hiking Grand Canyon. Some people ask, how soon before a rim to rim hike should you start training? I hike here about once a month, so to me, about 2 months in advance is a good time. 1 month is probably essential. But you should do whatever works for you, whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you want to start training 6 months or a year in advance, that's great. It'll make you a more fit person and probably help along the hike. The best training for hiking Grand Canyon is hiking Grand Canyon. However, if you don't have access to the canyon, you should look for an environment that best approximates it. Steep up and down conditions on a rocky, dusty trail at a high elevation. But even if you live in a city, you can at least go up and down the steps of a high-rise building. As for me, I hike the canyon about once a month, but right before I do a rim to rim, I add an extra hike about 2 weeks out. I find the training from a long hike sticks with me for about 3 weeks and then fades. So my final hike is a good practice run. I call it a confidence-building hike as I increase the mileage to at least duplicate the South Kaibab to North Kaibab route, 21 miles. The confidence-building hike assures me that if all goes well, I can make the rim to rim hike a few weeks later. It makes me feel confident. Other than that, my training consists of walking about 5 miles a day on mostly flat dirt trails. Once a week, I do a 7 or 8 mile hike. Although as rim to rim gets closer, I sometimes throw in a few more 7-mile days. I don't go to the gym, I don't use machines or do squats, so I initially thought I had nothing to say about training for rim to rim. But after some thought, I do. However, that doesn't mean gym workouts don't help. They may well do so, and more importantly, if the gym workout gives you the confidence for the hike, you're helping with the mental aspects. All I'm saying is that I manage without doing much other than walking. And here's another caution, don't overtrain. Especially in the week or two preceding the hike, you want to be sure you don't cause wear injuries to your ankles, knees, and so forth. I usually reduce my walking distances a few days before a rim to rim hike. Plus, on regular hikes, I do a bit of jogging, but on a rim to rim hike, I don't jog. I can't risk wearing out a body part or tripping and falling. You need to carefully preserve your ability to do a possibly difficult hike when you go rim to rim. Moving on to some more practical tips, the first is to lose some weight. I go as far as to trim down the map I carry on my hike, but what about the extra 18 pounds I put on being undisciplined in the past year? That is probably the most important training exercise for me, losing at least 5 and maybe more of the extra pounds. I'll still do the hike if I fail at this goal, but I have a month left to make a meaningful attempt. I wish I'd started earlier on this goal. Next, consider whether you're going to be going on a supported or unsupported hike. Supported means you have a friend or family member meeting you on the other side, which is great. The person can meet you down the trail a mile or two, offer you a Gatorade or a beer, and give you a ride from the trailhead to your hotel or resupply you for an immediate return to the other rim. But there's also a certain joy in the independence of doing it entirely on your own and of not needing to entertain a friend or relative after you've completed the hike and likely want to take a bath and get a good night's sleep. Of course, on an unsupported hike, you may need to carry a bit more. I've done it both ways. Each has their advantages and disadvantages. I can't say that one is better than the other. If you are unsupported, you need to consider how you're going to get to the trailhead on each side. If you're using South Kaibab, there's no parking at the trailhead, so you'll need to park and walk about 3/4 of a mile to the trailhead, or start later when the buses are running. If you hike to North Rim, it's 1.7 miles from the trailhead to the lodge, and if you are unsupported, you'll need to walk the extra distance to the lodge and to either walk or take a shuttle, if they're still using it, the next morning. There's a lot of discussion whether it's better to go from south to north or vice versa. I've done both, but I prefer south to north, partially because it involves much less driving on dangerous 2-lane roads, and also my drive home from South Rim is several hours shorter. That is, if I have support, and my brother and I have established a routine of meeting annually on my hike. However, on an unsupported hike, I now prefer north to south, as you can park your car at the North Kaibab trailhead. But the bottom line is, no matter which way you go, on a rim to rim to rim, you do both legs of the hike. My strategy is to get a very early start on the hike. At first it was 4 a.m., but with experience, I've moved it back to 1 a.m. It takes me about 2 hours to get on the trail in the morning, which means I get up at 11 p.m. the night before a hike. Of necessity, this means you need to have your breakfast ready in your room. I bring a cooler with fruit and yogurt. I also bring a coffee maker so I don't need to fiddle with single cups of coffee. You can get an inexpensive coffee maker for about $13 at Walmart, probably not much more than a few cups of Starbucks coffee if you later decide to abandon it when you leave. Speaking of food, be careful of your dinner before the hike. The last thing you want on the trail are stomach problems. Personally, I bring my own dinner, a salad with tuna. It's fast, easy, and requires no preparation. And this is from the School of Hard Knocks. Once I had some spicy Chinese noodles the night before a hike, and the results were unpleasant. I still made the hike, but I wished I'd eaten something safer. It also made good use of the small pharmacy I carry, which includes anti-diarrheals. A small but important tip: protect your trail food from rodents. They can inhabit cabins as well as campsites. I had a trip ruined by rodents in a North Rim cabin. There was no way to replace my food at 1 in the morning, so I had to scrap the hike. I now use a thick plastic container for the trail food to avoid this happening. School of Hard Knocks. Also, beware of the squirrels on the trail. If you leave your pack alone, they'll chew through the pack to get to your food, potentially ruining both. I prefer an early start as the trails are quiet, and if there's going to be something going wrong, it gives you some daylight hours to solve it. On one hike, my hiking companion had medical issues, and I thought we would have to take a helicopter out. I was glad it was early in the afternoon and there were still hours left to get the matter resolved. In the end, we were able to hike out and things were not as bad as they seemed, but I learned a lesson to give myself extra time to resolve problems, and I'd rather resolve those problems in the daylight when everyone's still working, as opposed to late at night. I started using dual headlamps for better night vision, but they also give you a spare in case one fails, something I've seen other hikers encounter on the trail. I also carry an extra set of batteries in case there are problems and the hike starts and ends in the dark. Also, treated water is usually available at predictable stops along the trail, but the water shutoffs have been occurring without notice, particularly as they repair the Trans-Canyon pipeline. I'm always sure to carry a system for both filtering and chemically treating water on a hike. Finally, when you do hit the trail in the morning, be sure to ask oncoming hikers about trail conditions. Learn about water outages or rockfalls as soon as possible. Next, know your weaknesses. They may well surface on the hike. I hurt my ankle running when I was 21. It led me to give up running at age 37. And when I started hiking in my late 50s, it flared up on my second hike and almost left me stranded. Since then, I only wear mid shoes for ankle support. I carry an ankle brace and anti-inflammatories, which have kept it under control. But you get the point. Everyone has weaknesses. Know them and be prepared to deal with them because they may well flare up on a long, difficult hike. Speaking of weaknesses, on this hike, my patella tendon, the knee tendon, flared up. I always carry this very lightweight knee strap with me just in case that happens. And luckily I had this and some anti-inflammatories from my small pharmacy got me through the hike without a problem. But weaknesses that you have will often flare up on a hike. Next tip, make written checklists. Start a month in advance. Say what you need in your room, what you need in your backpack, what you're going to eat, and how you're going to power your phone and so forth. Run through the plan day and be sure the items to supply your tasks are on your list. Eyeglasses, sunscreen, medications, comfort issues, baby powder, foot powder, bug spray, chapstick, wet wipes. A hike can be ruined by forgetting to bring something. And don't forget to put your backpack on that list. Imagine showing up for a hike and forgetting that. Another tip, be familiar with your equipment and don't try out any new equipment on the hike. Nothing new on race day. Sometimes the smallest things like an ill-fitting shirt, a loose hat, or too thin socks can cause problems. Avoid this by using tried and true equipment. Further, if this is your first rim-to-rim hike, watch other people's videos. Essentially, you can get to know every step of your hike without ever going into Grand Canyon. Look for people about your age or level. Sure, Jim Walmsley doing rim-to-rim in under 3 hours is impressive, but you'll learn more about your hike by watching people like you. Also, when you watch those videos, please note that most videos end with 1/2 or 2/3 of the hike done. Learn from this. It's a hard hike. It's best to pace yourself, to never become overconfident, and to take short breaks. On the south to north route, I see countless people taking long breaks at Manzanita, thinking there are only 5.1 miles left. But the section from Manzanita to Supai Tunnel is the very hardest part of the hike for me. I simply water up at Manzanita and move on, knowing the hardest part of the hike is ahead. Sure, take breaks, but only long enough to consume some calories or change your clothes and then keep moving. There'll be plenty of time to take a break when you reach the other side. Next, make your rim-to-rim hike a big event, at least before you start the hike. I mean, it is a big deal. It's a marathon, but with a mile descent and a mile climb. Expect to sleep poorly, expect doubt, excitement, and worry. I've done this hike at least a dozen times, but the most I've ever slept was 5 hours, and the least was maybe 45 minutes. But hey, if you're up early, have breakfast and hit the trail. Now, I have said make it a big deal, but that's only until you hit the trail. As soon as I start hiking, I tell myself, it's only a long walk, and that seems to make the hike go better. Next, know your trail, whether from other people's videos or from a map. Establish evaluation and turn around points. A trail you don't know seems to take twice as long as the same distance on a trail you know. Markers help you measure and feel comfortable with your progress on the trail. The multiple bridges on the hike make good markers. When I started hiking rim to rim, I knew Bright Angel Trail, but not North Kaibab Trail, so I would draw equivalents. Like Coconino Overlook is like Tunnel 2 on Bright Angel Trail. Manzanita is like Havasupai Garden. That helped me to divide the trail and help with my expectations of the time and effort on each section. You might want to use a trail you're familiar with to establish equivalent markers on your rim-to-rim hike. Next, understand the risks of the hike and don't feel ashamed of rescheduling your hike. I remember one dark morning meeting a young guy on the trail who twisted his ankle running on a rim-to-rim hike. It was his second try. He'd failed the first time and now he was trying to go on, but he was in great pain. I was able to convince him that it was better to go back than to risk permanent injury. He was only about a mile into the hike. He did, and I hope has successfully returned to complete the hike. But there are two lessons. First, be careful and take no risks. Second, bottom line, you're doing this for fun. Don't risk your health or your life on a rim-to-rim hike. On this hike, there's a risk of rockfalls and downpours, and in the rain, hypothermia. I'll hike in a drizzle, but when there's a high certainty of violent thunderstorms, which occur regularly at Grand Canyon, I cancel the hike. I've only turned around once. I started early in the morning, and when I hit the river, the sun wasn't even up yet and it was 86 degrees. That wasn't fun, and I developed the rule of 100. When it's over 100 degrees at Phantom Ranch, I'm not going to make the rim-to-rim hike. The rule is make it fun, not work. And last year, I did only one leg of a rim-to-rim-to-rim because of back pain. My recommendation is that you preserve your health and have backup plans in case things don't go as you expect. Next, watch the weather in advance. You can get 30-day forecasts from some sources, and within a week, the forecasts get pretty good. Evaluate carefully if an early start can avoid a blistering day or an afternoon thunderstorm. Stay flexible. Flash flooding on North Kaibab Trail especially can lead to dangerous rockfalls. It's not worth risking your life to make this hike happen. Finally, I mentioned the rule of 100. If it's over 100 degrees or 38 degrees C when I hit Phantom Ranch, I don't want to make the hike. And I say this from experience. I've been at Phantom when it was 117 degrees in the shade. The only hike I've ever canceled is when I hit the river at sunrise and it was already 86 degrees. I was younger then and my health was fine, but I decided I'd rather drive over to North Rim in an air-conditioned car than to sweat it out on the trail. I still follow the rule of 100, which I've expanded to make it fun, not work. This year, if the weather is really hot, I'll start even earlier, so I won't violate that rule of 100. So that's my final training and preparation advice to you on doing a rim-to-rim hike. Make it fun, not work. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Protect your health. There's no shame in putting it off to try another day. But if you do make it, it's a grand and victorious feeling to stand on the edge of the canyon, look to the other side and say, just a few hours ago, I was standing there and my 2 little feet have carried me here. It's a great feeling to set and achieve goals like hiking rim to rim or rim to rim to rim. Congratulations on undertaking this endeavor and best of luck on your hike. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching. Right behind where I've been standing making this video is a beautiful view of South Kaibab Trail. Running through the red, starting just beyond Cedar Ridge, passing O'Neill Butte, across Mormon Flats to Skeleton Point. Then below that, the red and whites wrapping around that butte, and the little tiny white buildings you see there are at the tip-off. Looking across, you can see Bright Angel Fault, going up to Roaring Springs Canyon, where you cut left and head for the North Kaibab Trailhead. The entire rim-to-rim hike has been sitting behind me for this entire video. A little bit of humor to me and an interesting view for you.